Hi there, Unstoppable fans. I'm Sam Belsky, Unstoppable's executive producer, here with Parker Jensen, our anchor, Arjun Kaul, our co-host for last semester's NFL podcast that we've been having, GW Picks'em, and Richie Wright, last year's squash correspondent for Unstoppable. We're going to be switching it up a little bit today for our content. Instead of our usual GW sports talk, we're going to be talking a little Super Bowl preview to let you know our thoughts, our expert opinions on what's going to be going down next weekend. Um, I just want to kick it off with the most obvious storyline of this Super Bowl: Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. They're 2-2 against each other all time. It's an old versus new kind of dynamic going on with all the NFC East or all the NFC quarterbacks being on the older side, or all the successful ones so far anyway, and the AFC ones with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes being much, much younger. So, what do you think this would mean for either of their legacies, the younger side with Mahomes or the older side with Brady, and who needs it more? Parker, I'm going to start with you.
We'll start off with your first question. Let's start out with Patrick Mahomes. Now, this would be obviously a big win for the Chiefs. They'd be going back to back. And we'll talk about this potentially a little bit later on what that means for the legacy of the Chiefs. But for Patrick Mahomes, he's trying to establish himself on the get-go as the potential next GOAT for this generation, right? We're looking at Patrick Mahomes and, like you said, Josh Allen as kind of the next two quarterbacks to kind of lead this new generation of talent. Obviously, we have Justin Herbert as well. We have Lamar Jackson. So there's plenty of talent here. But Patrick Mahomes is far and away leading this pack with the biggest contract we see in the NFL, one of the biggest names in sports right now. I think Patrick Mahomes is leading the charge. So obviously a win against the current GOAT is going to be big for his legacy. But to answer your second question, who needs this more? It's Tom Brady. You know, Tom Brady coming from the New England Patriots, he had no other head coach before. He stuck with the Patriots his entire career. And now he's trying to prove himself with a new team, new coach, new weapons on his side, new ownership, new city, new conference. He's playing in the NFC now. And so this is going to be big for Tom Brady to kind of silence these critics, because we've seen it. Tom Brady's a system quarterback, right? All the credit should be for Bill Belichick, not necessarily Tom Brady. Now, I'm a Tom Brady fan. I'm a big Patriots fan, so obviously I've been opposed to that. But the critics are there, you know, and despite the fact that he's won numerous rings and is potentially one of the greatest athletes of all time, there's still skeptics out there. So a win in this Super Bowl is going to silence all the doubters. It's going to cement him as the greatest quarterback of all time, if not already, and potentially the greatest athlete we've ever seen. So this is the biggest game in Tom Brady's career, in my opinion, to cement him as the GOAT for all sports.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think Tom Brady's already proven himself at this point with the Bucks. He's made it through the playoffs. Like, he made it in a division where you already have Drew Brees and the Saints, powerhouse team, and he went and still made it to the playoffs despite all that. And he beat Washington football team. Like, okay, not the best, but you prove yourself in wild card round. Then you go to the Superdome. You beat Atlanta, or not Atlanta. You beat the Saints, and you go up to Green Bay. You beat Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I think all of that's already said enough that Brady can win and is a great player with or without Bill Belichick in the system in New England. So whether he wins or not this coming Sunday, he's already cemented this legacy he's made from himself this year, I think. It's just the added bonus of you get the ring with a different team. So I would say maybe in that sense, it might be bigger for Mahomes' legacy, but assuming Mahomes can build off of it. But I think Brady's already got the legacy. This is just a final touch to it, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with Richie. I feel like Mahomes does need this win. It's kind of a passing of the torch, if he does, to have his second back-to-back Super Bowl win against the greatest player of all time. And doing that, you will see what happens with Brady after this if he does lose. But the passing of the torch is very kind of persistent in this Super Bowl. And if Mahomes does win his back-to-back Super Bowls, it will be reminiscent of Tom Brady's early legacy. So it would be great to see Mahomes win again. And I do think it will be bigger for his legacy.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think as a biased Giants fan, I think I could use to see Tom Brady being taken down a little bit. But on that note, a big reason that Brady has been denied GOAT status by a lot of people has been his long history with Bill Belichick. You can sort of see the same thing getting started on the other side with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, a really already great head coach who really has just been doing great things with the Chiefs so far. Currently, Andy Reid is 6th in career wins as a coach with 221. And if the Chiefs were to win this year, or if he were to win in the future, he would be the 13th head coach in NFL history to win multiple Super Bowls. This past week, Donovan McNabb actually said that Andy Reid is a top 3 all-time coach. I was just wondering what you guys had to say about that. Arjun, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, I would say Andy Reid has always been a great head coach. He's also always surrounded himself with great talent as well. You see this with quarterbacks such as Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Mahomes, Nick Foles even. And so he does have, he will maybe get his second Super Bowl win. He is also a great play caller. I watch these Chiefs games and I see the designs, and you get pitches to Travis Kelce, who just runs it 2 yards. Who's going to stop that? And all the trick plays. It's great to see. I don't know if I can cement him as a top 3 head coach of all time. Definitely, though, winning multiple Super Bowls will get him up there with Bill Belichick and other great minds alike. But, I think a great conversation in this is Brady versus Reid. And if we look at their record, Brady is 7-4 against Andy Reid, with 4-0 as the Eagles head coach. Brady won 4 games, but with the Chiefs, he's only 3-4. And, we've seen kind of their duels back and forth, but I think the greatest game to kind of talk about is the 2018 AFC Championship game, where Bill Belichick kind of just outmaneuvered Andy Reid. We can see this through locking up Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, as they were non-factors of the game. And so I think that might be one of the biggest things to look at for this upcoming Super Bowl.
Yeah, Arjun, I think you nailed it. I mean, Andy Reid has been one of those coaches where the only thing that he needed was a Super Bowl ring. Mm-hmm. And he got that with the Eagles, and now kind of going into this with the Chiefs, rather. And now trying to get another one under his belt, I think would cement him as a top 5 potentially in my mind. Mm-hmm. As of right now, again, like you said, I agree. I don't think he's top 3. I think Donovan McNabb kind of has some bias there. But Andy Reid is not a bad head coach. I think he's the second best head coach in the league. I still think Bill Belichick still has that title. He just doesn't have the weapons that, he thought he had at the beginning of the season, specifically with Cam Newton under center. But I think Andy Reid for a while, like Bruce Arians as well, I think he's a great head coach. But what he needed a little bit more was that Super Bowl ring. There were still skeptics on his part. I think he's up there, but Andy Reid, really, for a while, the only thing that he needed was to go to the Super Bowl and win that championship. He's got it. He's definitely top 10 in my book of all time. And if he gets this, it's top 5, but not top 3. I think Donovan McNabb was kind of blowing that out of proportion.
Yeah, I would agree. It's also really premature to say all that when he's still coaching a team that's about to be in the Super Bowl again. And I just think he's phenomenal. Definitely, I agree, one of the best of this generation of coaches. But you have to look at him more so, I think. You can't really say something like that until after he's out of the league and you can look back on the full picture and say, he's done this, he's done X, Y, Z. Like, obviously, he's fabulous. With the Eagles, he was really good, just never got the credit. And the Chiefs, like we said, he's built that franchise into a powerhouse, and we'll see.
I'm going to have to agree with you guys that he's not quite there yet. But in all honesty, with Mahomes and the Chiefs team as it is, I think he could definitely reach that by the end of his coaching career. Kind of flipping it over to the other side to talk about the Bucs a little bit more. They are the first team to ever be the home team in their home stadium for the Super Bowl. This is crazy to think about, even especially keeping in mind that whoever was the NFC team for this Super Bowl would have been the home team regardless, even if it was not the Bucs. And so there's a lot of questions that come with this, especially in a season that has been, marred with COVID, with opt-outs, with people getting COVID and not being able to play, games being rescheduled, fans not being allowed in the stadium. How will the Bucs, being the first ever team to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium, how will this impact it? Will it impact it with less fans because of COVID? Do you think that the ticket sales being well in advance of the Bucs knowing that they're going to be there, do you think that will impact it? For reference, there's going to be 22,000 fans there, which is much less than their usual capacity. I know it's less than half. I couldn't tell you the exact proportions off the top of my head. But how will this home team in their home stadium be playing, and how will the home stadium impact them? Let's hear from you, Richie.
I think that having any kind of fans present at the game is going to be a morale booster for the Bucks, definitely. But I'm sure it can help the Chiefs as well. But you look at the numbers, you said 22,000 about they want, and I think they said a capacity at Raymond James Stadium is around 66,000. So that shows just what a dip it is. It said this will be the lowest attended Super Bowl since the first one back in 1967 with like 60,000 people there. But I think having fans in the stadium will give it some of the energy they need. But I do think that Brady and the rest of this team, they don't need to feed off the energy like some other quarterbacks and other teams in the league do. I look especially to like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think he's somebody that really feeds off the live energy of the audience. I don't think it's really a factor for either of these teams, but it's not going to hurt either of them either, I think, with fans being around.
Yeah, I would say the fact that the NFL also gave a lot of the tickets to frontline workers was a great kind of cause, but I don't see that kind of working for the home team's favor as much as we would expect it to or want it to for the Buccaneers. But then, again, it is a great kind of initiative to put out there. I do think that Tampa Bay will play with it in their mind that we can bring a Super Bowl to our home kind of crowd or fans, and that might play for their advantage because it's just kind of added motive. And we've seen with Tom Brady throughout his whole career, a defensive player on another team says something and he takes that as motive and he shows them up the next week. So going into it, knowing that he can finally be the first quarterback to bring a Super Bowl at home to his fans in a completely different organization. I mean, this man just feeds off of energy and motive. So I think this may prove beneficial to the Buccaneers, not as much as Bruce Arians did say this week that it would play a huge factor, but I definitely do think it will help Tom Brady.
I think one important fact to consider is just how important fans are to, again, like you guys are saying, the energy that these players feel, especially when we're going into the Super Bowl. This is the biggest game in the world, right? So many people watch the Super Bowl when it comes on. Everyone, this is the dream for so many people, right? And so to have fans there, I think it just amplifies the energy a lot. So I do have to agree with Bruce Arians. I mean, their players come out and talk about how important fans are to them and wanting to win. I think Brady is like that. Mahomes is like that. We see a lot of wide receivers. Stephon Diggs and OBJ actually notably always interact with fans before the games. It really kind of gets them going, it gets them hyped up. And so I think we saw in the NBA bubble trying to incorporate fans and seeing how the lack of fans in the bubble really affected the players, right? And we talked about that with some NFL teams or some players that come out where the specific states won't allow for fans to attend the games and how that's kind of impacted their play and performance. So I think fans attending this is going to help both teams, not just one side or the other. But I think if it were to help one team in particular, it could be Tampa, just because it is a home game for them. But this isn't going to be the stereotypical home team or home field advantage that we've seen in years past. I think this year has been weird for many reasons. I guess same for last year now that we're in 2021. Even though this year's kind of been weird enough itself. But it's definitely going to help, I think, both teams. It's going to get the energy back to what the Super Bowl kind of is known for. It won't obviously be the same in years past, but again, if it were to impact one team, I think it could be Tampa over Kansas City.
To I guess flip it back over to the Chiefs, this would be the first repeat champion since 2004 when the Patriots did it in the NFL. Obviously it's been a while since this has happened before, and the Chiefs have been a team that for a couple of years now have shown that they're going to be yearly title contenders, especially since that it's Brady that could be spoiling this and who was the last quarterback of the repeat champion teams. How do you guys think this is going to play into the game? Do you think it will play into the game at all? Parker, let's start with you.
Well, I think it will play into the game. I think going back to back is very difficult in any sport. I think especially the NFL, right? I mean, we've seen multiple teams in the NBA kind of go back to back and how difficult that is. I mean, you look at the Warriors and they talked about how hard it is to go back to back. And that's, 13, 12 person team really. And you have a few coaches, a few personnel, but you're talking about a full NFL squad here, full 52 roster. You have so many people and so many moving parts on a team. And it's very difficult to get back into something like this. And so it's big for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And I think it's big for Patrick Mahomes too. I don't want to make this comparison. I think it's a little bit too early, but I think it's similar to how LeBron James has been trying to chase after Michael Jordan's ghost in a sense. And I think Tom Brady has established a legacy as the GOAT. And I think Patrick Mahomes has the ability to do that. I think he has the ability to make himself the next GOAT. And I think he's kind of chasing that in a way. And in doing so, going back to back would be huge for his legacy. And I know I talked about how Tom Brady's legacy is kind of more in the balance with this game than Patrick Mahomes. But again, this would be very, very big for him as well. So I think it's going to play on the minds of Kansas City. I don't think it's going to affect Tom Brady quite as much, trying to break up that back to back. I think Tampa Bay is just going to try to go in there and take the victory. And I think it's going to be big for Tom Brady, not necessarily, it's going to be big for the team, but I think it's more for Tom Brady in my mind. But it's going to be very big for Kansas City if they can go back to back. And I think it's playing pretty heavily as they go into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Mahomes and Chiefs have to look at the 2018 AFC Championship game and realize that if it weren't for one offside call, this would be their third Super Bowl that they would attend. And with that added kind of drive, Mahomes knows that he can go 2 for 2. I mean, they definitely have a great shot. We've seen the Chiefs all season. Great offense. It's so electric how fast they can score. And Mahomes knows how talented that team is. And they definitely have I don't think they have a chip on their shoulder because they know they can literally destroy any team if they want to. And so I definitely do feel that they have a great shot at going 2 for 2 and winning back to back and building on Tom Brady's legacy and handing over the torch to Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. And it's almost a little strange to say that I feel like the possibility of a back-to-back winner for the Super Bowl is not the biggest story that we're talking about heading into it. There's so much more to focus on. So I think a lot of the players from both sides are not really focusing too much on the possibility of a repeat winner. But I don't think it's really just going to play as a factor in Mahomes' mind. He's got a lot of confidence and he's worried about other things than just trying to get that record per se.
All right, so let's get into the really, really important part of our discussion and the most interesting, in my opinion, are game predictions. Now, keep in mind that these two teams have met this season. Back in November, the Chiefs beat the Bucs 27-24. So a very close game, fairly average scoring for these two teams who can both really, really take the top off of defenses. Who do you think is going to win this game? And what'll be the deciding factor? What player, what kind of play, whatever it may be. What do you guys think it's going to be? Let's go Arjun, Richie, Parker.
All right. So I think both defenses are going to be the deciding factor. We've already established the offenses are amazing. But, when you look at trying to guard Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, all the other weapons that the Chiefs do have, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can kind of make Tyreek Hill a non-factor, it would be great. And I think the biggest game to look back at, which I keep referencing, is the 2018 AFC Championship, where Bill Belichick basically schemed up a defense where Tyreek Hill only had 1 reception. Travis Kelce only had 2 receptions. And if you can kind of lock them up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can put it on them. And that is what I think the biggest kind of factor will be in this game. We've seen the Chiefs defense has also been one of the best on throws 10 plus yards downfield. They're the best in interceptions, passer rating, and completion percentage. And they got a lot of pressure on Josh Allen in their last game. So if they can replicate that against Tom Brady, that would be great because we've seen Tom Brady does not do well against pressure. However, I have my final score as 30-24 Tampa Bay taking it and Tom Brady winning his 7th Super Bowl, which I cannot wait to see.
I definitely agree with the defenses being the deciding factor this game because, like you said, we know that both offenses can produce a lot of points. I think Tampa really needs to make sure that they can control possession because anytime you give them Mahomes is too much time for the Tampa defense. I think with Eric Fisher being out, that's really going to help them because they can put a lot more pressure on Mahomes. But they need to make sure that they're not overzealous, I think, because sometimes we saw Brady's been a little sloppy lately, like that championship game through 3 interceptions. He was really shut down by the Green Bay defense. So I think it's a combination of Tampa's defense has to really show up and stop the Chiefs from owning possession. And also Brady's just got to make sure he's not too sloppy. He doesn't force too much. I know sometimes that's not Brady's fault. His receivers, sometimes they don't catch the ball if they should, or maybe Bruce Arians is a little overexcited with some of his deep routes, but it's part of the fun. I think it's really just going to come down to the defenses and who controls the clock. My final score, I think it's going to be pretty similar to last game. I think it'll be like a 28-23 Chiefs.
I'm going to agree with both of you guys. I think the defense is key, but I think the biggest thing to consider is who's going to be able to come up clutch in the fourth quarter, right? I mean, we've seen Tom Brady do it over and over and over again. That's what he's known for, and you can't not back Tom Brady, right? You can't bet on Tom Brady or against Tom Brady rather. Now, both quarterbacks obviously known for being clutch. Patrick Mahomes can definitely do it when it matters, but Tom Brady's done it over and over again. He has the experience. He's been in these situations before, and he's kind of seen as an underdog, I think, in certain ways. I think Kansas City's offense is much better, while I do want to give the Bucs defense much more credit than the Chiefs. I think some people going into it might question Bruce Arians' experience in these types of situations. I think the Chiefs might have a little bit more expertise in that regard, but Bruce Arians also is allowing Tom Brady to kind of do whatever he wants. I think one of the biggest criticisms Bruce Arians has of Bill Belichick is that it's really Bill Belichick's call at the end of the day. And Bruce Arians with this team, with Tom Brady now at the helm, he's giving Tom Brady the ability to kind of do what he wants. And I think that's very big when it comes to what happens in the Super Bowl, especially in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to have to go with Tom Brady on this one. I think it's going to be a very close game, like you guys have said. But I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to squeeze this one out 24-21 over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow, we're getting a lot of Bucs victories coming from these predictions here. That's kind of surprising to me. Honestly, I think that the Chiefs are going to take this one. I think what it'll come down to is that sort of second tier of playmakers. You know Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mike Evans. They're all going to be able to perform. They're all going to get their 100 yards and or a touchdown in this game, especially with such high-powered offenses. And really what are honestly only like pretty good defenses. None of them are like the best of the best this season. I think it'll come down to whoever steps up out of, the secondary guys. It sounds weird to say, but Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown being secondary options, if they'll be able to step up, as opposed to, some of the running backs for the Chiefs. You got Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and, some of their secondary receivers who can make plays as well with Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, those kinds of guys. I think it'll be the Chiefs taking it in this one. I think it'll still be a close game, though. I'm going to call this 33-30 toward the Chiefs. I think it'll be a good game to watch. It's going to come down to the wire for sure. That's all the time that we've got today. Thank you guys for being here, for providing your insights, and for being willing to say your Super Bowl predictions on camera so that we can look back at how terrible these all were after the fact. Otherwise, check us out on Unstoppable social media, as well as the greater GWTV social media all over the place. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube. Give us a search, give us a follow, give us a like. For now, enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody. Enjoy the Super Bowl, you guys, and see you next time.